Good morning if you reside somewhere far away to the left of me on the world map. Good evening if you reside very far away to the right, and good afternoon if you are roughly where I am. Today, on Thursday, we have a few more things to talk about happening this week, and also things that will happen next week with the release of the season. Let's start with the more important ones that players will flock to immediately, so I won't have you go and skip half of the video for that. It's gonna be right off the bat. For today, we have the balance tuning. This time, the balance tuning is aiming the incoming tier sets coming from the Season 1 of Dragonflight. Remember, as we talk about tier sets, that the Creation Catalyst, the new version of the Creation Catalyst, will be locked for the first 6 weeks of the expansion. So you still have no other ways other than the raid and other than the Great Vault to be obtaining this tier set. Yes, you can still get the tier set offered to your Great Vault from Mythic Plus and from PvP activities as well. But beyond that, you will have to wait, I guess, 4 more weeks since the season begins to get the Catalyst opened. Now, talking about the actual changes of the tier sets themselves, we start with a significant nerf, because the Guardian Druid 4-piece set bonus, which was a very powerful one for being self-sufficient and self-sustaining, was that Gore, on top of having a 5% increased chance to proc, once you use Mango with the Gore buff active, you were generating a massive heal over time on yourself. This was a 375% attack power heal over 6 seconds. Now this attack power heal has been cut by basically roughly 2/3 of its original number. Now it's 135% of your attack power. So significantly reduced in power, this tier set bonus for Guardian. I guess, after getting Giga buffed a couple of weeks ago, Blizzard is sort of counteracting that huge buff with a few bits of tuning here and there, in this case with their tier set getting nerfed. Talking about changes, here is the massive change to marksmanship. I know I have seen and heard many of you talking about whether or not marksmanship with the 10% damage buff and the slightly higher damage in AoE buff that they have received this week, if it was going to be viable. Well, after this change, perhaps their chances grow even higher, because this is the change happening to marksmanship. A semicolon being added to their multi-shot spelling of their tier set bonus. This is the buff they are receiving for today. After that, we have a small quality of life buff to Brewmaster, where their damage taken buff is now easier to keep up because it no longer lasts for 10 seconds. Instead, now it lasts for 15 seconds. So, in particular, perhaps from pulling pack to pack in Mythic Plus, maybe you don't get it to fall off nearly as often now that it lasts for 15 seconds. At the same time, Prot Paladin gets a nearly reversed treatment, although with a compensation. Their buff to keep up is quite harder because it's generated by Avenger's Shield, which has quite the cooldown. It used to be much shorter, then it was buffed to 10 seconds, and now the buff has been nerfed back down to 8 seconds only. The benefit now instead is that the versatility buff you gain is no longer 5%, it is instead 6% for 8 seconds. So a bit harder to keep up with a shorter duration, but the actual buff you gain is larger now for Prot Paladin. We then have the last one is a buff, and you could be weirded out to see that the buff is landing on Demonology, one of our more anticipated and perhaps one of the more popular and powerful range DPS specs coming in the first season. The buff is to their tier set, where Demon Bolt having a chance to making your next Gul'dan instant and doing 50% more damage. Now the buff is 150% more damage, so tripled the effectiveness of this tier set bonus for Demo. That being said, the part of your build which focuses on doing damage with Hand of Gul'dan is very small. You are a demon pet master, and most of your damage will come from pet damage, not nearly as much from Hand of Gul'dan damage. Still interesting that they chose to buff Demonology with these tier set bonuses. After this set of balance tuning for the tier sets, we have gotten a few announcements here and there from Blizzard. The one, of course, about the season being released, giving us all of the dates and the times for the releases of the new content. Although, to be fair, there wasn't really much to be confused about, because the release of the 3 standard raid difficulties, normal, heroic and mythic, will all happen at the same time. So there won't be any staggered releases of raid difficulties besides LFR. LFR will be coming with a week delay. So this is the delay for the LFR, whereas the other 3 standard difficulties will all be open on next Tuesday in NA, next Wednesday in EU for everyone to try out. Same goes for Mythic Plus, of course. Worth a reminder, Mythic Plus, because Mythic raiding is not delayed by a week, Mythic Plus will not have its item level rewards locked for 1 week. That was a method to prevent Mythic Plus becoming too powerful before the Mythic raid part of the season was open. But since now the Mythic part of the season comes out immediately, then the Mythic Plus dungeons will also give you unlocked max level possible gear item level from the caches at the end of the run. It is also worth pointing out, I guess, that next week is the week where you get the second spark of Ingenuity for you to then decide to craft a couple of items already. Maybe not if you are unlucky and you are a Fury Warrior and you need double two-handed weapon and each of the two-handed weapon costs you 2 sparks. So basically you have to take twice as much time as anyone else before you actually get your gear crafted. And besides the poor Fury Warriors, most other players can already plan to get a couple of items crafted by next week. I would put some importance in the value of the Primal Chaos, which will become quite valuable by next week. Why? Because if you want to craft this thing right here, if you want to craft the concentrated Primal Infusion, which will come from looting material needed for this from Mythic Plus keys and from Mythic bosses, the Mythic version, and then lower Mythic Plus keys, Mythic Plus 11 and higher, as well as heroic bosses to craft the Primal Infusion for heroic raid gear item level. This will also need to be paired to create the actual item with 100 Primal Chaos if you want the heroic item level craft, or with 150 Primal Chaos if you want the Mythic raid version of the craft. You know, this is quite large. If you imagine you want to craft a couple of pieces which already cost 40 to 50 Primal Chaos, and on top of that, you have to add 150 chaos to each of those crafts, you will end up needing by next week some 400 primal chaos to be able to craft both of the items at very high item level. That's why I said perhaps taking some at the very least attention to the amount of primal chaos you have right now and how many you can gain by the next week. We might point out a little bit more some of the grinds you can do, like the disturbed dirt grind you can do with the Dragonscale Expedition, currently being the best, easiest way to grind primal chaos, because those mounds of dirt also have a chance to give you primal chaos. So if you actually do the insane grind of some 15 plus 20 plus hours of digging dirt, you might end up with 300 to 400 primal chaos gained by doing this grind. So that could be a way for you to get some of the primal chaos needed to craft your cool high item level stuff by next week. Finishing for today, and I'm gonna finish it mostly for you, some free stuff Blizzard is going to give out. Because with the upcoming release of the season and the upcoming start of the race to World First and whatnot, Blizzard is resuming some more Twitch drops available to the viewers. In this case, we have available the Cenarion Hatchling as well as the Swift Windsteed, so a mount and a pet for you to be able to earn through Twitch drops. The requirements, of course, are to watch at least 4 hours of WoW Dragonflight content while this Twitch drop is active on any of the channels, myself included, by the way, to earn the Cenarion Hatchling pet. Once you have earned and once you have claimed the pet, and only after you have claimed the pet, you can start to watch 4 more hours of WoW Dragonflight content to also go ahead and earn the Swift Windsteed mount. Those are going to be the 2 rewards available for Twitch drops. These are the times set on PST, on Pacific time from the US, at noon of the 9th of December of tomorrow, ending on December the 13th at 3 p.m. Basically from the start of this weekend all the way to the reset before the start of the season, that's when the Twitch drops are going to be available. And of course, you might do very well to claim these Twitch drops on my stream. That would be cool. Now, besides these Twitch drops, we can leave with one more thing free for the players that will be available with the actual Race to World First. This is going to be the Perpetual Purple Firework toy, which is exactly what it sounds. It's a toy which makes fireworks, which are purple. That was expected. This is even simpler to achieve watch at least 2 hours of WoW Dragonflight content by selected content creators on Twitch, and these are going to be the content creators in and around the Race to World First. So many of the players from guilds like Echo, from guilds like Liquid or Method, and similar other characters. You can find the full list of enabled content creators in the link that I will leave behind for you in the description, and this will be available for the first 2 weeks of the season. So starting the next reset, basically when the other 2 Twitch drops end, when those 2 end at the start of the next reset, this one will be available for a couple of weeks, all the way through until December the 28th. That's how long this perpetual purple firework toy will be available to redeem by watching a couple of hours of WoW content. With this being done and said, we are now finished for today. We can leave each other by starting to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the contribution and the support to the channel and to myself as well. You can of course support still in other ways which don't force you to fork out money. Commenting and liking down below on this video as well as subscribing to the channel are still quite helpful ways to show your support. You can then also follow me on Twitter, subscribe to my Patreon to get access to my Discord server as well, and lastly, I am found as well streaming on Twitch, starting roughly around 10 p.m. European time zone, 1 p.m. Pacific US times, and 4 p.m. Eastern US times as well. Now we can leave, I can go back grinding my rares for absolutely zero reward. Thank you guys again for watching, see you guys soon, and in the meantime, however, I have to stop grinding rares because once again I reminded myself that I need to eat, and I have been delaying this by a couple of hours already, so I need to go.